Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod with Jetro Marks. Jetro is co-founder and CEO at the Now Group. He occupied a bunch of other positions before. He's a non-executive director at Drone Shield and other companies. Cool guy altogether. He's in the greater Sydney area, but from New Zealand. I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico, and we're going to discuss about his background, what he's up to for this year with the Now Group. This podcast is brought to you by podprayer.com. If you want to start your own podcast or scale it, it's also brought to you by this new topic called Qualia Mind. If you want to optimize your brain as a busy entrepreneur, go to Neurohacker's website, and I specifically choose the caffeinated version of Qualia. Jetro, welcome to the pod, aka Jet. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, kind of a slight amendment to what you said. This has pretty much been my only job for the last 21 years. We founded the company in 2003, three guys in a room with a few computers and no money, and sort of just kind of started from there and sort of gradually iterated our way to building the business that we've got today. I guess the starting story was we had a very sophisticated business plan. We were going to find anything that would fit into a box and put it on the internet and sell to anybody in the world who would buy it. And I mean, yeah, I'm being a bit cheeky there, but I guess that's kind of what we do today, just on a slightly larger scale with a little bit more sophistication around it. And today we operate warehousing in 4 different countries. We sell to 100 different countries. We have a product database of about 50 million products, and we sell through 20, 30, 40 different channels and platforms around the world.
And how do you compete with Amazon?
It's a really good question. So we don't compete. You can't compete head to head with Amazon. It just doesn't work. So what we do instead is we operate in the same space. We operate in a state of co-opetition or frenemy with Amazon, where we are competing with them in certain respects, but at the same time we also form a part of their supply chain. So we sell very actively on about 8 different Amazon platforms. We to a large extent fill the gaps. We have products sometimes that they don't have. Sometimes we're cheaper than them. Sometimes we're just faster. Our technology is a little bit faster getting the product to them. Sometimes we can undercut them. Sometimes we can't. And because we do this for millions and millions of SKUs, we may lose many, many times, but we win enough time that we get the transactions and it works.
Right. And why that focus on one business for that long?
I guess we're just very persistent. Look, it's been an interesting ride. The business has changed a lot. Like you said, we started like 3 guys in New Zealand, and we've now moved into a variety of different places. I think that the whole online e-commerce space has just grown and changed dramatically over the last 25 years. Like if you look at any graph that shows the growth other than 2022, it's been upwards and to the right. And so we've just been riding this wave of this increasingly large market that has never really stopped. And it's a total global phenomenon. So, the world is flat. We may have been operating in Auckland. Today we live in Sydney. And like I said, we operate to 100 different countries every month. So there is no obstacle to being able to operate at a global scale here.
Right. And what product is selling very well nowadays? You have multiple categories. What are you seeing that's selling like hot breads nowadays?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, we do a lot of different categories in different markets. Books are a big part of the business. That's where we started, which is a lot of people kind of don't even believe that people buy books anymore, but the reality is that they do. We're in a bunch of what we call more legacy categories like books, DVDs, and CDs. Again, categories that one wouldn't expect there to be much of a market, but the reality is there are still buyers of these products around the world, and we're able to find them. We're seeing good growth in kitchenware, homewares, and obviously baby products have been a good staple of ours for a number of years.
You said 100 countries. So how do you decide which country to expand in next?
Yeah, so we operate in our 4 major markets, which are the US, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. and then leveraging the marketplaces, across the different channels, we pick up orders from everywhere. So there's no country that we won't ship to unless we're not allowed to. I think there are a few that we're simply not permitted to, but for beyond that, any customer in any country can purchase from us, and we will try and ship to them, unless there's a restriction on that product for whatever reason.
And how do you decide on new categories of products to expand in new departments?
It's very data driven. So we'll typically look at what's selling in the marketplace at the moment, what brands are very popular, and then we've got a team that will sort of move into those areas. So we're in 5 major categories, which are books, baby, toy, homewares, and kitchenwares, and then we're in another 20 or 30 other smaller categories where we haven't quite hit critical mass. So we're continually building out the categories that we're in, and I guess serendipitously or opportunistically looking for new ones to get into. There are some categories that just haven't worked for us. We tried wine, that didn't work. We tried auto parts, it didn't work. We've dabbled in fashion, it hasn't really worked. But beyond that, everything else we sort of got into and stuck with.
You said you're really data driven. What is your analytics approach? Is it like filling your brain with a bunch of data and then making a gut decision? Is it hiring very smart people? How do you actually make conclusions? Because even though the data might be there, sometimes it's a bit counterintuitive. You might change something, and the outcome of that change might not be directly related to that. So, what is your data slash decision making algorithm?
Yeah, so I guess the answer to your question is a little bit of everything. We try and hire very smart people who build the systems, and then what we try and do is rely on the systems as best as we can to make the decision. So to give you an example, pricing is fully dynamic, and we are repricing tens, if not hundreds of millions of times a day across all the different platforms that we're selling on. There's no manual intervention there. Where the manual intervention comes in, I guess, is assessing whether or not the algorithm that we've built is the one that we want to. Where possible, that's what we try and aspire to, because that's a scalable solution. But to your point, there are instances where you do need to apply some gut feel to it. And I think in that instance, we will try and present as much data as possible to the user to be able to allow them to make that decision, and then have the feedback loop that is so important to determine whether or not, as you described, like it's counterintuitive. You did X expecting Y, and instead you got something completely different. So having that feedback loop to make sure that we are on top of those decisions where we got it wrong or we just had an unexpected outcome.
And I'm seeing the website looks like a really simple UI. Your payment is secure. There's a 30-day free return policy, and there's Afterpay so that people can pay in many payments. What recent feature do you have on the roadmap that you'd feel would add tons of value to your consumers?
So a lot of it is not even complicated or really innovative. We're really just trying to work and improving on what we do in the simple ways. And some of the stuff is just redesigns of certain UIs that are coming through, improving the way that we present data. It's boring. Like this is so, the kind of stuff that we're working on at the moment is not exciting in this particular instance. It's just really just trying to ensure that we are taking all the friction out of the experience and making sure that the consumers get what they want. There is some stuff we're working on around AI to try and improve the consumer experience and being able to give them the level of service that we potentially can't do with this team that we've got, just because we can't staff at the times and within the response times that we want. So we're experimenting with that, and we're hoping to have something in market in a few weeks' time, and we'll see if it stacks up with what we're doing, with what we expect it's going to be doing. Other than that, it's just trying to really make sure that we are presenting the best possible option to a consumer, and making it as easy as possible for them to complete their transaction, and then post-transaction to be able to get all the data and information that they need regarding their order as and when they require it.
Right. And I buy a lot from Amazon. It seems that there would be like more product review on Amazon vs on denial, for example. And there might be like more trust, or is it because you're more of a local brand, like people trust you more? Like Yeah, I'm still not sure why people would actually buy on your platform via Amazon.
Sure. So we've been around. That particular site that you're looking at has been in market for about 18 years. So yeah, there is there is a high degree of trust. It's we've got some products that Amazon doesn't have. Some not everybody buys on Amazon. I think that's one of the things. In North America, it's it's a given that your decision will always start on Amazon. I don't believe in every market, and certainly in Australia and New Zealand, that is the first place that you'll go. And so a lot of consumers will buy from us on other platforms, or they'll buy from us on our website because they've found us and we've presented to them what they're looking for in a way, shape, and form that they want.
Yeah, that's right. I also love the experience on your website. It seems very quick. VS Amazon, sometimes pretty slow, especially if you open many tabs, takes a lot of GPU because they've got like so many trackers in there. How do you make sure that the website is that quick while being able to take the data that you need to grow the company?
Yeah, so it kind of comes back to what I was saying before. We've done one round of recent iterations on trying to improve speed, and there's another round coming because we know full well that speed is one of the most paramount things. So if we have to sacrifice more granular data to be able to give a better speed or consumer experience, then we'll go with the latter because that's ultimately what consumers want. And knowing that knowing what people are doing to the level that you're describing, if ultimately it tells us that what they want is a faster experience, doesn't really help us. We're better off just giving them a faster experience and tracking a little bit less.
Right. So with that company of yours, 18 years, what would be the main factor for growth? Like, is raising capital in the equation? Are you like in customer acquisition mode? Like, what are you thinking in terms of investments in the business to have it grow? Or is that even a goal, for example?
Yeah, no, we've grown almost consistently every year, I think, except for one in 21 years. And it's all been organic growth. I think we did a very small capital raise in 2020 to pay for one particular thing, and beyond that, it's all been bootstrapped the whole way through. At the moment, it's just been in a constant state of reinvestment. That's been our entire mode of operating for the entire duration of the time that we've done it. And it's proving out each year just consistently keeps just growing a little bit more.
Very interesting. In terms of recruitment, I see most of your team is in the Philippines. Is that for CS purposes? And who do you have on the radar to add gasoline to your existing fire?
Yeah, so we have a core team of people in Australia and in New Zealand, mixed across the two. We also run our warehousing teams in Australia and New Zealand. We work with third parties offshore in other markets. And then we have a large team in the Philippines. We've been operating in the Philippines for about 10 years. And that whole team all directly works for us. We don't see any difference between whether they're there or here. We've got staff in 3 or 4 different countries. And from our perspective, they're all just the same team members and they just happen to be in different places. I think we're always on the lookout for absolute gems and stars out there. But our core team has been with us for a long, long time, and it's been amazing. We've had some team members who've been with us for 20 years, and the average tenure is really quite high up.
What kind of challenges have you faced building that business? Because you make it look all easy, but in reality, it must be a pretty hard business to build and to scale. What types of fires have you been extinguishing in the last couple of years?
I think that's a daily experience. I've spent 20 years fighting fires. Look, there are a lot of moving parts. It's a high volume, low margin business where you're moving physical products. So there is no margin for error. And mistakes happen, things go wrong. We don't get it right all the time. And so you're constantly trying to fix it and tweak it and change it and make sure that it's not going to be existential, whatever the error is. I think it would be much easier if we were in a business with lower expectations, higher margins, less moving parts and everything, but we're in exactly the opposite of that. And we've had every possible permutation that you can imagine when it comes to moving physical products, from items being held up, delayed, stolen, burnt, every possible imaginable thing that you could think of has happened within. I'm sure there may be some I haven't thought of, but everything we have thought of has happened so far. And and then with technology, we're writing all of our own code. We've built all of our own software, so that has its own set of challenges as well. I mean, it's very positive as well, but that brings with it a whole lot of sets of challenges too. And it just keeps going, but it's a lot of fun at the same time.
And what kind of traffic are you hitting on a daily basis?
I'm not sure on that specific site. We don't typically look that too carefully. We are, like I said, we're across 30 or 40 different platforms. And so we are our product, and we've got typically anywhere between 250,000 up to about 5 million products available on all the different platforms. So there is a tremendous amount of traffic across all the board and eyeballs on our products. But we don't, it's not a metric that we keep a very close eye on.
Yeah, it, must be a lot of visitors in the end. Let's call it like 100,000 visitors across all the websites on a daily basis.
Could be. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure. Like I said, no number that we track.
Right. The business, and then myself was like, why are you building a business that is that hard, like low margins, high volume, but you must be stacking a big valuation. Is exits in the plan nowadays? Is that on the next 10 years roadmap?
Well, I think every business is always up for sale. It's just a question of who's prepared to pay what, and whether you can find the right number. I don't think it's not something that we're actively working on. We're not running any processes at the moment, but we'll see what happens. I mean, from our perspective, we've always just been focused on growing the business, making sure that it's stable and it keeps growing, keeps doing its thing, and that it's profitable. And if it achieves those outcomes, then eventually at some point something will happen. Now, whether that turns into a listing, or whether that turns into whether it's an IPO, whether it's a trade sale, whether it's just taking on investment at some point, I'm not sure exactly what the outcome will be, but at some point we'll do something.
What does your day-to-day look like as a CEO?
A lot of talking. I spend a lot of my time talking to, mostly internally with our team, and also externally with other partners. And in between that, I like to get stuck into the data and spend a bit of time just looking at what's going on. So I think part of my job is sort of trying to find problems. So I spend a lot of time looking at just where potentially problems might lie, and sort of from an umbrella, not umbrella, from a high level view, just being able to identify where issues within our system are, and get the right people on to fix them.
Who are you learning from nowadays? Have you read most documents available about Mr. Jeff Bezos?
It was a period where I was reading a lot. I've read all the books, listened to all the podcasts. I mean, there's been a lot we've taken from them. They've done it. I mean, that is, it's an amazing company, and they've done amazing stuff there. And yeah, we've definitely sought to understand some of the magic that's gone on there to try and figure out what's useful to us. But we try and be a little bit more broad in terms of gaining inspiration as and where it comes from.
With that much data in your hands, what have you seen economically in the past 4 years? Do you feel that we're in a recession nowadays?
It's been the most crazy 4 years, right? So if you think back from the start of COVID, I mean, we were at a personal level negatively affected like everybody else, but at a business level, we're net beneficiaries of COVID. I mean, the lockdowns helped. In 2020, the start, I mean, we basically doubled. I remember on the first few days trying to figure out if there was a problem somewhere in the system, because I'd never seen, I thought where we were importing duplicate orders, or maybe something had gone wrong, but it was across the board everywhere. I literally spent, I think, a day and a half trying to figure out where the problem was, until eventually I accepted that maybe the market had just moved, and then sort of put two and two together that actually, if everybody was unable to move around, they were looking to then buy online. And so, and then that started the roller coaster that was the COVID experience for 2 years. And then we came out of COVID and we went in exactly the opposite direction. What goes up must come down. And everybody surged out of their homes and went to stores and stopped buying online, and were doing all the things that they had been, the spend went into all the different areas of the things that they'd been deprived of. And that took about a year. And now finally, 2023, we've sort of seen the first normalized year. And 24 is looking similar, where things are sort of back to, well, not back to, but where we expect that they will be. And internally we're saying, look, ignore every year before that. 2023 is the baseline. From here on in, this is what we expect going forwards. In terms of a recession, look, I don't know. I think, yes, I think we're probably, the consumer is a lot more negatively affected at the moment by all the increases in pricing, and is a lot more careful in terms of their spend. But I think back, aside from COVID, the period that we grew the most before this was what in Australia we call the GFC, or the global financial crisis of 2008 to 2012. And there again, it's counterintuitive. There was a massive recession. People were very negatively affected. But what happens is people start looking for the best deal and start to save wherever they can. And then, the realization is that online, you've got the best opportunity to get the best pricing. And so, that's where we were able to then get a lot of eyeballs on our offer, and it worked really well. So our expectation is that consumers will be in a similar mindset at the moment, and they seem to be, which is that they just want the best possible offer. And very often that's online.
Well, Jet, thanks so much for all the knowledge you shared today. Where can people find out more about you?
If me personally, check out LinkedIn. Happy to connect with anybody who wants to. Jethro Marks, you'll find me. It's not difficult. And if you want to see more about the website, have a look at Nile. It's nile.com.au or nilegroup.com.au.